Our goal now was to
Survive.
survive and head to Jan Mayen, this little Norwegian military base island. And if we were off by even a degree, it's basically a death sentence.
Welcome back to Drop a Pin. Today we got a very special guest, my buddy Tyler, who I climbed Mount Everest with. And he talks about a bunch of different crazy stories from all over the place. Mongolia, Antarctica. But I think we're going to focus on his trip across the Arctic Ocean in a rowboat, self-propelled.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just absurd. So we met at the World Cup. I guess when he was just working a boring sales job, he knew my friend, and my friend was like, he now works for Starlink. He's going to be at the World Cup in Qatar. You guys should meet up. So we meet up for a few drinks, and he was like, I might be able to get you suite tickets to one of these games.
Damn.
I was with PFT, and I was pumped because the suites were the only place at the Qatar World Cup where you could drink at games.
Oh, shit, yeah.
And they were like $10,000 tickets usually. But he was like, no, I got you. Just show up and meet this guy. He'll hand them to you. And so we roll over there. Turns out we're in the Emir of Qatar's suite. Now, the Emir was not there. He was not, but like it was his suite. We were with all of his people, like all people that worked in the Qatari government. And it was actually on Thanksgiving. So the suite, they've got like seats, but then there was a kitchen with a dining room table. We had our Thanksgiving feast.
I imagine it wasn't like turkey and cranberries.
No, it was not. It was good food though.
Yeah.
But the only downside of being in the Emir suite, it's the one suite where you could not drink alcohol because he didn't want to come off as a hypocrite.
Yeah. Good for me, not for thee.
Yeah. Because the Qatari royal family banned booze like a couple days before the World Cup. They were saying that they were going to be selling booze outside of all of the venues, and then like a week before they were like, nope.
Yeah, and it might be good because I don't think you would have got away with the same type of, I don't think you'd be doing community service in their fire station if you'd have had a drunken public there.
Yeah.
It probably would have been a lot worse.
I mean, you could drink a lot there. Like all the hotels would have these gigantic sports bars, and then they had fan zones around the country that you would be allowed to drink.
It probably is smart. I mean, think of the international hooligans and how wild some of those countries' fans are. You add in booze to all that too.
I mean, that's the reason, like in Russia, they don't serve booze at any soccer games. I think a lot of European countries do that because they're worried that people are going to get too rambunctious.
I mean, they got fires and stuff in there just out of nowhere, like in a regular season game.
Yeah, the flares are insane. I went to a game in Serbia against Red Star and Partizan. It's like the most violent rivalry in sports. There's been drive-by shootings, a bunch of murders. Definitely no booze at those games. And if you can't sit, they have the...
You should drop a pin in Serbia.
Definitely. They have the home section and the away section, and you're not allowed to mingle at all. And then in between those sections, they have an empty section.
You know who does that here? Army, Navy. Yeah.
Do you think if it was, well, that's just like adds to the like.
It does. It's just a cool
game.
thing. Yeah, it's not because they're going to be violent with each other.
Yeah, and it probably looks really cool on when you're watching it on TV too.
Yeah, so me and Connor and Kate, we all went to an Army-Navy game, and Navy had beaten Army, I think, 14 years in a row, which I lovingly refer to as the Connor curse, because they started that losing streak the year that he enrolled there and was on the football team. After that, they didn't win for 14 years, so I call it the Connor curse.
Let's go.
But we were standing on the sidelines, and me and Kate were right in the middle of the two student sections where they meet up.
Yeah.
And the juxtaposition of Army being jubilant and Navy looking crushed, and like Army was going over the stanchions to rush the field and all that. It was awesome.
I got to get to one of those games. Now that you're my co-host, maybe you could secure an invite down the road.
Yeah.
But yeah, the World Cup was fun, but you would drink a lot before the games, and then you would show up, and by halftime, you'd be so hungover. But me and PFT found a little hack. If you chug a Bud Zero, it kind of tricks your brain into thinking that you're actually drinking beer.
I could see that. Because, I mean, if you're drinking a light beer, you're not getting anything out of that right away.
No.
Yeah, but we wanted to tell you guys a little bit about what we have coming down the pike, because we do have some other great shows lined up. If you didn't check out Ecuador last week, make sure you do that. We have this one. We have Where else do we got? Las Vegas.
We got a Las Vegas episode recapping my 3 times in Las Vegas, as well as the few times Chaps has visited.
Tanzania
with our first professional athlete guest, Chris Long, who climbs Mount Kilimanjaro once a year or something like that with his charity Water Boys. And then we have probably the most intense interview we've done, a dude from North Korea who escaped twice and now lives in Los Angeles or somewhere in California.
His story legit gave me chills several times, unimaginable what he went through. And
a very nice guy. He said he'd be down to come back on. Those are the 3 episodes we have already recorded. I think we're also going to record a Mississippi episode with Brandon Walker. And then when Biz Nasty is in town for the Winter Classic, he's going to come on the pod and we're going to recap our whole weekend in Tennessee, where we filmed the pilot for a new hiking show that we'll be launching soon. But this episode, even though Tyler talks about a bunch of different countries, after the interview, we're going to focus on Norway because that's where he began his rowing journey. So without further ado, do you want to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Here's Tyler.
Okay, now on Drop a Pin, we have Tyler Carnevale, who the Yak proclaimed was the most interesting man in the world.
Yeah, he's the coolest person I've ever met in my entire life by a lot.
Yeah,
by a lot.
He climbed Mount Everest.
You fucked on the mountain?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm the coolest guy in the world. You should have led with that, bro.
That's devastating.
DJ, change the thing underneath it. That's the change his words.
Yeah. Fucked on Everest.
Oh my God.
He was on that entire adventure with me. He has rowed across the Arctic Ocean. I think he built a drone in Mongolia. I don't know. We're going to let Tyler explain for himself. How are you doing, bud?
I'm good. Never been better. Super busy, but busy's good. So having fun.
All right. So where should we begin? I guess, when did your travels begin? Because at one point you were just working a sales job in New York City, right?
Yeah. I was at a startup in New York right out of college. And yeah, that was a much more boring time of life. So when did the travels begin? Growing up, I think I'd caught the bug from my grandparents. They were huge, what my grandpa calls independent travelers. So have been around the world, more countries than most people, and caught the bug when I was younger. And then I think, after graduating college, I just started to travel, enjoyed it, and it was kind of the snowball effect. And it's never been the same.
Was your first time really just taking a leap of faith when you went to Mongolia, after you quit your job?
I think the first big trip was just after graduating, actually before that first job with my girlfriend at the time. We went to Southeast Asia, hit Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia. Did that for, I think, 2 or 3 months. So that was kind of the genesis of all this.
Okay.
But Mongolia was definitely a big one. But that was years later.
So what brought you to Mongolia?
It's a good question. The girlfriend that I just mentioned and I, we had dated for 5 years on and off. Finally ended officially, and I wasn't really loving my job at the time, that first job out of college in New York. Quit the job, and obviously that relationship had ended, and I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm going to go visit my sister who was surfing in Bali at the time with her boyfriend. She just graduated college and sat there for 2 or 3 weeks, was surfing, having a good time, but something was missing. And going back to my grandpa, he'd always talked about Mongolia, which is a country he had always wanted to visit as the spiritual center of the universe, or at least that's what the kind of shamanic people there would refer to it as. And I was like, well, I'm going to go. He's always wanted to go. I'll go for him. He's always, talked about Mongolia as this incredible, magical, spiritual place. And, didn't do any planning, went straight from Bali to Ulaanbaatar, one-way ticket. And I read a little bit going into it. There's a federal law that allows you to camp wherever you want around the country, no restrictions. And I was like, well, I'll rent a car, drive around the steppe, the Gobi Desert for, let's see how long and see what happens. So
were you not staying at any hotels? You were just pitching a tent wherever you decided to call it quits that day?
Yeah, mostly that. Probably 80-90% of my time was spent in a tent somewhere out in the steppe. There were some nights where I would stay in a yurt. Like, I think I've told you that story about my car breaking down, and I had to stay with this Mongolian family in their yurt in the middle of bumblefuck nowhere for like 4 days. And then here and there, I'd find small communities and stay in yurts with various people, but mostly tent. Yeah.
Do you want to retell that story for the people who haven't heard it?
Yeah, be happy to. It was crazy memory. Yeah, so the plan was roughly I rented a car from Sixt. I think it's one of only 2 car rental agencies in all of Mongolia, in Ulaanbaatar. They call Ulaanbaatar the capital UB, by the way, so I'll call it UB from now on. Rented this little Suzuki Jimny and started driving down into kind of the Gobi region steppe. And Mongolia is the least densely populated country in the world. 2/3 of the population roughly live in UB. So once you're out of the capital, it is just no man's land. There were periods of like 4 days, 5 days where I wouldn't see another human being, not even a sign of life. It was pretty crazy out there. So
was that scary at all? Was that scary, like not being around anyone?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think eerie is the right word. Just like and scary. Like, God forbid something happens, which it did. You're like, well, I might be fucked. And if you need to resupply, or if you need help, if your car gets stuck in mud, you're kind of potentially screwed.
Yeah.
So definitely scary. And this was very, very early on into the trip, but I was maybe like a few days out from UB and started getting into the Gobi region. Sand was present, and an interesting fact about Mongolia is that there are really no paved roads. I think there's like I think it's maybe like 20 paved roads, and I think they have a paved road from the capital to each of the capitals of the different provinces. But aside from that, nothing. So people typically follow these like dirt paths that are essentially the outlines of people who have driven there before. And obviously Google Maps doesn't work. And when the rainy season comes in, these dirt roads that, acted as markers are kind of gone. The grass grows back and they have to be made again. So I kind of get a little bit lost. I'm getting into deeper sand, and I go to turn the wheel and the front axle just totally snaps. It wasn't the newest vehicle, so wasn't surprised, but I looked at my passenger seat at all the supplies I have. I have like 1.5 liters of water. I have this goat curd block, which is a popular, I think it's called arul, popular food there in Mongolia. Very like cheese and meat heavy cuisine. And I'm like, well, I might be fucked because I haven't seen another person like a day. I have basically no supplies. I have 1.5 liters of water. And the last time I passed a town of probably less than 100 people, that was, not something I could walk to realistically. So sitting there and I'm like thinking I might die. I'm like, well, I'm feeling a little thirsty. I barely have any water, and it's super hot now. It's maybe like 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
God. And
I see this little white dot on the horizon, and I'm like, well, I could either wait in my car and hope, someone drives by. Felt like the chances of that would be super low, or I could walk towards that little white dot, which I hope is a yurt. So I did that. I did the latter and walked for like an hour or so, and got to this yurt, and it was a yurt, and it was like a little trailer next to it, a couple of solar cells, and that's it. And it was this old woman in the yurt by herself, sitting there kind of, organizing a few things, spoke no English. And I had bleached blonde hair at the time. I always wanted to bleach my hair, try it out. And I was like, well, I just quit my job and I'm going to be traveling for a bit, so we'll do it and see how it goes. So this white guy emerges from the Gobi Desert with bleached blonde hair out of seemingly nowhere. And this old Mongolian woman sitting in this yurt in bumblefuck Mongolia looks at me and does not seem surprised, shocked at all. She just pats on this little stool to motion me to sit down. I'm like, this is weird and unexpected, but sure. I sit down, and then a few kids come back with a freshly killed goat, and maybe like 30 minutes later, she starts cleaning the goat, putting all of the organs into this pot of boiling water, starts feeding me, and I'm like, oh, well, I can't say no. It seems disrespectful. So I'm eating like intestine and liver, and it's pretty gnarly. No seasoning or anything. And then, I guess I come to realize that it's a family that lives here. She is like the grandmother. The mom comes back. The father comes back a little bit later on a dirt bike. They have a bunch of kids, and none of them speak any English. I think some of the kids speak a few words of Russian, and it's mostly communication through hand gestures and body language, and wind up staying with them for 4 nights. And, had a picture on my phone, luckily, of the front axle being snapped, and they had a satellite phone that like maybe 2 days into me staying with them, we used like maybe 45 minutes outside of their kind of living area. We had to go up on this big hill to get signal. And so he called somebody in UB. They got in touch with the rental company. They sent down a flatbed tow truck, somehow drove it into the sand, got the Suzuki Jimny onto that, and had another guy drive down a replacement vehicle. So that was in a nutshell what happened. Pretty crazy.
Mongolian hospitality.
Yeah, unmatched.
And you've probably found that wherever you've been, the hospitality of the locals is pretty amazing. Yeah,
I'd say so. It's like, people are interested in engaging with, people from other cultures, other countries. People are super kind, generous. I think there's like an inherent fear in the U.S. for some reason that, or like this sense of xenophobia where like they just feel like people in other countries are not this way, but it's hospitality all around the world is amazing.
Would you consider yourself an endurance athlete? Because the amount of just wild things you've done is pretty impressive. Climbing Mount Everest, rowing a boat across the Arctic, which we'll get to. But you've also done, what are they called? Super marathons? Mega marathons?
Ultra marathons?
Ultra marathons. And you did one in the Sahara Desert?
Yeah. That was in 2019. To answer your question, I think maybe 2 years ago and before, I would have considered myself an endurance athlete. Now I'm getting a little chubby, and I think it's more so like endurance athletes mentally now, working hard and being Sisyphus, rolling that boulder up the hill. But no, I'm sure I'll get back into it. Definitely takes discipline, but did that ultra marathon. That was the longest one I've done. That was 150 miles over the course of 6 days. It was a stage race across the Sahara Desert in Morocco. That was gnarly.
Because I mean, like, just doing 100 miles in Chicago would be insanely impressive, but doing it through the Sahara Desert, I mean, how did you even survive?
There was at one point where I thought I wouldn't. Some guy collapsed in front of me. I don't know if he died or not. I think I'm not sure if anyone died during our year, but there were times where I didn't think I would survive. It was super gnarly. Like during the day, you're running in anywhere from 100 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, scorching sun, and at night it gets down to like 40 degrees. And the thing about this race is everything you need for the race you have to carry on your back. It's a self-sufficient race, so you're trying to pack as lightly as possible. Everything except water and tents. They have a crew that puts up and takes down the tents each day at the. They put them back up at the finish line, so you don't have to worry about that. There are these big, nice Berber-style tents, and then water. I think you're allocated like 6 or 8 liters a day, some in the morning, some throughout the race, and some at the end. If you drink more than that, you're penalized. They add time to your overall time. But aside from that, everything's on your back, and I have this little, like super, like micro light sleeping bag to try to, optimize for having the least amount of weight on my back. And that thing did not keep me warm at night. So it was like teeth chattering, just misery at night. And then 7 a.m. rolls around, sun starts coming up, and instantly sweating. And It's about, it was over the course of 6 days. Each day is about a marathon, 20 to 25 miles. And then the fourth into the fifth day is 50 miles. That's a long stage. And it was rough. I survived though.
I've fallen down a lot of TikTok rabbit holes on ultra marathons. And there's this dude that like last weekend went to Moab. It was like 240 miles. And I've watched him do it. I've watched like David Goggins do it and a couple other people. You people are fucking nuts. Like to sign up for that as a sense of enjoyment to do on your off time. No, thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
no, I don't want to do that.
yeah, I would say no. Like, I would love to climb Everest at some point. I don't know if I could do it, but just to go to the middle of the desert and run 25 miles a day, I don't think that is in my future.
It's like type 2 fun, or maybe type 3. Like type 2 fun it's not fun in the moment, but it's fun in retrospect. And then I think type 3 fun is kind of a joke, but it's like something that was never fun, not in the moment, not looking back.
Yeah,
it's
like
just,
this summer I did a 100-mile bike ride, and I was like, that was pretty sweet. And then at the end, we just like ate and drank a bunch of beer at the beach. It was sick. I was like, I feel pretty accomplished. Did you feel accomplished after that? I think I would just feel like relief that it was done.
there was definitely a sense of relief. I did feel accomplished. It was, I think like generally I like to challenge myself, mentally, physically, whatever. And yeah, I think there was definitely a sense of accomplishment. I just remember sitting in this little kind of store in the outskirts of the Sahara Desert, drinking a Coca-Cola and eating chips after the race. And I was like, I mean, that felt good, but that's when the sense of accomplishment kind of set in. And I don't know, a lot of people drop out of that race throughout the 6 days. So it felt good to just finish it. But I think relief outweighs the sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Would you agree that a lot of people do those types of events is because once you've accomplished that, every other problem in your life seems minuscule? You're like, I just ran 100 miles through the Sahara. Any issues I have going on with my career, with my personal life, with my family, like I can handle those.
Yeah, I think so. I think most people are probably in it for that sort of
perspective,
reward or outcome perspective without even realizing it. I think that's like when people ask me why I do these crazy things, that's more or less my answer. It's like when I did that row, for example, and I that in itself was insane, almost died a few times. And then you come back to this cushy office job, 70 degrees in the office, nice thermostat, comfy chair. You're just, you open your laptop and you're just thinking, this is no longer stressful or too difficult. This is manageable. So
let's talk about that row a little bit, like the training and what made you interested in it and some of the things along the way.
Yeah, so that was in 2017. I was just a boy back then. I was 23. I just graduated college and started that job in New York City. And I think, as any senior in college might experience, I was kind of going through an existential crisis, like thinking, what am I going to do with my life? All these questions. And it was like, well, I had this weird, I came to this conclusion that I should just go and do something crazy.
I came to that same conclusion, but my idea of doing something crazy was teaching English in China, not rowing across the Arctic Ocean.
That's crazy in its own right. Yeah. It comes in different forms. I just started this job and I forget who told me about this website called Explorers Connect. And it's basically like, a hub for people who are going on expeditions and trips like this to, connect with the larger community of insane people. There's a section where people can post classified type ads like, hey, looking for an additional member for XYZ expedition. And I'm 23, have never been on a proper expedition. I've never done anything crazy like this. And I see this, I just got into long distance running, was really, running a lot, taking it seriously, and love the idea of endurance, ultra endurance. And there was this posting that just basically said, looking for a sixth and final, team member for an ultra endurance event. And that was it. That's all it was framed as. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So I inquired and, next thing you know, I'm on a Zoom call with this Icelandic guy, Fionn Paul. He was like the most accomplished ocean rower in history. Keep in mind, there was no mention of ocean rowing in the posting.
Yeah, you got to keep that out.
Yeah, that's gonna scare away potential prospects. Yeah. But he's explaining to me, hey, he's like, I have rowed the Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean. No one has ever rowed the Southern Ocean. Between like the bottom of South America and Antarctica, or Australia and Antarctica, and the Arctic Ocean. He's like, I have 5 guys looking for a 6th. I'm putting a team together I want to be the first people to ever row across the Arctic Ocean or cross the Arctic Ocean in a human-powered vessel. I was like, oh my God, okay. Jesus. And he's like, it's going to be 3 weeks. We'll basically row from Longyearbyen, Svalbard, which is this Norwegian archipelago, not too far south from the North Pole, maybe like some hundreds, few hundred kilometers south. And we're going to row from there to Iceland. It's going to take roughly 3 weeks. 3 of us will be rowing at any time. The other 3 will be in the cabins on either end of the boat. We'll row for 90 minutes, which means we're switching off every 90 minutes, but doing that 24/7 for 3 weeks. I'm like, holy shit. And he's like, but the question I have for you is, do you feel mentally strong? Because yes, it's physical, but after the first day, that goes out the window and just comes down to how much you can handle mentally. I'm like, oh, I think I can do it. So he's like, okay, pass these physical tests on the erg machine, that rowing machine you might see in the gym. Send me your results, and did that. And he's like, okay, you're in. It's like, well, fuck, now I'm committed. And yeah, I guess I kept running to keep my endurance up, and then I signed up. I never rowed before, like cruise style. I'd never done that, and signed up for private lessons, which lasted about 2 months up on the Hudson River. And yeah, then before you know it, it was August, and my job let me take a month off, and I was flying up to Norway.
Before we get into the rest of Tyler's story about rowing across the Arctic, I wanted to talk to you about Hydro, which is the ultimate rowing machine. It's the best one I've ever used, and it's perfect for whether you're training to cross the Arctic in a rowboat or you just want to get in better shape. I recently moved into a new place which does not have access to a gym, so I set one of these up, and it's what I do for a full body, low impact workout. When I'm just jogging around town, I struggle with something called IT syndrome. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
You get this sharp pain on the outside of your knees.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I stopped doing that, and I just started rowing, and no pain in the knees. And it's a lot of fun too, because these machines, they come with a screen, and you just select where you want to row, and you can row in all these beautiful destinations around the world. You can row in Norway, which is what we're going to be talking a lot more about this episode.
Without getting cold.
Yes.
Another thing I really like about Hydro, unlike other rowers that I've tried in the past and eventually sold because they stunk, this one actually has a program where you could train with Olympians and other world-class athletes. So you don't have to just do it on your own. You can watch them and their technique and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the perfect way to keep me motivated.
Yeah, and another thing, it's heavy, but it's got free shipping.
And if you go to hydro.com and use promo code WONTON, you can save up to $475 off your Hydro machine.
Which is crazy. I've been doing these for a long time. I have never seen a $475 discount by the code WONTON. That's a lot.
Yeah, it's wild. And once again, that is Hydro, HYDROW.com, and promo code WONTON to save up to $475 off your rowing machine. And now let's get back into Tyler's insane story about attempting to row across the Arctic Ocean. So during the row, would you guys sleep in shifts?
Yeah. So every 90 minutes, you basically have 90 minutes off. You have a cabin on either end of the boat. Keep in mind, this is a 30-foot, like 28-point-something foot boat. So the cabins on either end of the boat are super small. For the 2 weeks that I was on that boat, we can get to why it wasn't 3 weeks later, but I was not able to lay down horizontally at all. So you're in this cabin kind of curled up. You have that 90 minutes to change out of your sopping wet, freezing gear, put, a merino wool on if you have it, and eat and sleep. So realistically, maybe you get 45 minutes of sleep in each of those 12 shifts a day. And after a few days, you feel lobotomized. So sleeping in shifts, it was definitely weird getting used to, but yeah.
You were saying that no one had ever done it before, but I guess that's what the Vikings did way back in the day when they settled Iceland, because they came over from Norway and they had human-powered ships. I'm sure their ships were larger than that, and it was like maybe a crew of 40 people all rowing at the same time, but
assisted by sails, though.
Yeah,
assisted by sails.
Yeah, they may have had some sails.
They definitely had sails. Anytime that they would go outside of like Norway, of the Nordic area, like directly around their islands and places that they actually live, they definitely use sails.
Okay. Well, hey, you can kind of relate to what it was like being a Viking back in the day.
I think so, yeah. It was, I can see why they were able to grow beards so easily.
So what were some of the biggest challenges when you were on the boat? I mean, besides the sleep deprivation, being out, I mean, I've done some pretty tough shit too, but I can't imagine weeks on end just relying on essentially a nap schedule to keep you going. How did you eat enough? How did you drink enough to keep like hydrated?
Yeah. So like I said, it was supposed to be 3 weeks. That was the original plan. We were going to go from Longyearbyen to Iceland. It was shortened to 2 because I think it was maybe like 7-8 days in. The plan slightly changed. We also, Fionn was obsessed with, trying to pile on the Guinness World Records. And one of them was, the northernmost latitude reached in a human-powered vessel. So we actually wound up going from Longyearbyen up to the edge of the polar ice cap, basically that white circle you see at the top of a globe. And then from there going down to Iceland.
Down to Iceland.
Shortly after we reached the edge of the polar ice cap, which, I mean, these boats, it was a Iranic 45. They're designed for warm weather environments. It's like a fiberglass, super, in ways, delicate boat that is not designed to be, moved through ice fields, like with all these icebergs, any of which could like puncture the hull and, cause it to sink. We get up there, we're already dealing with pushing small chunks of ice and icebergs aside with the oars. Things slow down a bit. The weather was perfect up until this point. We were collaborating with a meteorologist based in France. He was pretty good, but told us there would be no storms. We had, whales breaching all around us, puffins circling us. It was beautiful. And it was actually so warm that we were able to like kind of take our Helly Hansen gear off and just enjoy it. It was really nice. Shortly after that, a few things happened. One, all of the wildlife seemed to disappear, and that's, concerning in itself. And a crazy storm hit, like 20-foot swells, no exaggeration. We're in this little boat that's rocking. You can imagine this little kind of banana-shaped boat in the middle of these crazy waves. And at the same time, we come to realize that this British guy who wired our solar panel to we had this PV cell on the front of the boat that we were using for energy. And the guy who wired it to our fuel cell made a mistake and it short circuited. So now we're dealing with a finite amount of energy for the rest of this row. And so many systems on this boat are dependent on the fuel cell. Like we were using an auto helm, which is basically this rudder on the bottom of the boat that was using GPS, kind of auto steering as we rode to get us to the right place. Our desalination pump was dependent on the fuel cell. So to even have fresh water, we needed that fuel cell to work. And then our comms, our navigation, and a few other things. And now we're working with a super finite amount of energy, and these storms are just brutal. So it was kind of do or die at this point. Again, like I can't, it's hard to put into words how crazy these storms were and how, absolutely terrifying it was. But Fionn had rowed across Indian, Atlantic, Pacific, like I said, and I think a couple of those multiple times. And there's this device called a sea anchor, which is essentially this big parachute that opens up maybe like 10 meters below the surface, where currents are more stable, and it kind of keeps you in relatively the same spot. He had never used one in his entire ocean rowing career, and we actually had to use it 3 times during the course of a row. So when that storm first broke out, we're realizing that we have no we don't have an ability to generate any more electricity. We opened the sea anchor, and for I can't remember if it was the first storm or second storm, we hunkered down, all 6 of us in the cabins together on either end of the boat, 4 of us in the back, two of us in the front. And I think, one of the storms we were in there for 8 hours, 10 hours straight. And I'm barely 6 foot. And I have, by the way, on this boat, it's all super accomplished, crazy athletes. Like Alex Gregory is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist from the UK, rower. But they're all these massive guys, 6'2", 6'3", 200 plus pounds. And I'm crunched, into the cabin at the back of the boats with my head up in kind of the end of the cone. It's kind of cone shaped on the other end. And I have 3 massive guys on top of me. All of my limbs are asleep, pins and needles, and the boat's doing this, and I'm just profusely vomiting in this bag. And that went on for 8 hours. And, storm dies down a little bit. We all get out, we start rowing again. And, then the fuel cell becomes so depleted that we have to take the auto helm off of the fuel cell. And now it's Fionn steering the entire boat manually on a system of pulleys. And, we're all lobotomized, super sleep deprived. And you can kind of tell when Fionn starts falling asleep because the front of the boat starts drifting. And Alex Gregory, who I just mentioned, is in the front seat, kicking the door, going, Fionn, wake the fuck up. And our goal now was to
survive
and head to Jan Mayen, this little Norwegian military base island north of Iceland, which was so small that it'd be super easy to miss. And if we were off by even a degree, it's basically a death sentence. We're in such a remote part of the world that even an SOS signal, which is the strongest, signal distress you can put out, it would have taken the nearest cargo ship days, maybe 3 days to get to us. Helicopters, planes can't get up there. So it's we gotta make sure we hit Jan Mayen.
Jeez, fuck! I need a minute. I need a drink. I mean, when you're with those guys, who do you take shifts kind of being the sane one of trying to keep everything together? Because there has to be ebbs and flows in your sanity essentially at that point, being that fearful for that long, that cold, that exhausted.
Yeah, definitely. I think luckily no one panicked too much. I think it kind of moved around from person to person throughout the 2 weeks we're on that boat. But Carlo Ficino, who is just he's like a Jesus figure. He's a handsome guy with this big beard, super zen. In the midst of these storms, you'd look into the cabin and he's sitting there cross-legged, super calm with his little jet boiler making food. It's Carlo, how the fuck are you so calm as we're facing potential death? And he was kind of the rock there, the anchor. He kept everybody calm. And
meanwhile, our boss set off a flare in Nantucket Harbor because the motor on his boat stopped working.
Surrounded by other boats.
Yeah, and then he got saved by
on a weekend in the summer.
A teenage girl in a rowboat. So you guys eventually made it to the island.
Yep. Almost exactly 2 weeks after we set off from Longyearbyen, we hit Jan Mayen. Literally the size of Manhattan, maybe smaller. I think probably smaller. It's we had to get special permission from the Norwegian government to land there. It's a pretty, I don't want to say top secret, but a pretty sensitive base for them. I was the first American, and Carlo as well, to step foot on that island since World War II. We had a base there called Atlantic City, and after that, there were no Americans have stepped foot on that island since then. And got special permission on the last few minutes of comms that we had with the fuel cell to land. We pulled up, and yeah, I think it's 18 Norwegian military members and scientists are stationed there for 6 months, and they do kind of rotations. A big C-130 comes in, takes the 18 off, brings another 18 in, and a bunch of those 18 came down to the shore, brought us onto the island. Luckily, they had some heavy machinery, pulled the boat up onto land, and that in itself was another adventure. We were stuck there for over 3 weeks. No private aircraft could come to the island, or vessels. So we had to wait for the next Norwegian military aircraft or vessel to come to get off. And luckily, like after 3.5 weeks, it was the Norwegian Coast Guard. They made a stop. And that's, how we eventually got from Jan Mayen back to a small city called Sortland in mainland Norway. But yeah, stuck there for 3.5 weeks. Didn't know what to expect, but like the amenities were pretty good. They had barracks where we slept. They had a hot tub warmed by the sun, so that was nice. They had plenty of beer, so wasn't all bad. But we also, 5 out of the 6 of us suffered from non-freezing cold injuries in our hands and feet, mostly our feet, which is kind of like trench foot. It's like a precursor to frostbite, and your nerves are essentially almost dead. And for like 2 of those 3.5 weeks, the pain I was experiencing from my nerves and my toes coming back was so intense. I was like waking up at 3 a.m, night after night, screaming in agony. Felt like my toes were being, squeezed in a vice while getting stabbed by a knife and dipped in molten metal. It's the only way I can explain it. And aside from that, it was good.
I mean, just coming inside after doing a little bit of sledding and you're trying to get in a hot shower, your feet feel a little tingly. I can't imagine what it's like after being on a fucking rowboat in the Arctic.
Sometimes just after a day of snowboarding, I'm screaming in agony as the circulation comes back into my toes. So
Tyler, I've only known you for about 35 minutes, but you're a real sicko. Already know that. So.
I might be a sicko. Yeah, I think my mom would agree.
I mean, if you had to rank the ultramarathon, rowing across the Arctic and climbing Everest, what pushed you the most mentally and physically?
The row, by far, not even close. That row was. There were maybe 2 or 3 instances where it felt like I was looking death in the face, like peering through the veil. I mean, I could have been thrown off the boat a few times, and that's like death sentence. Mm-hmm. I remember sending my mom this email from our little SATCOM device, like, "Hey, I love you." And just like rowing for 90 minutes, every 90 minutes, 24/7 for 2 weeks is just. Obviously, the physical aspect of that is crazy. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks, but the mental anguish, like when you're in your cabin and your timer goes off and it's like, fuck, we have to get back on those seats for another 90 minutes, and you still have like another week to go. It's like, holy shit. That was really rough.
Was Theon very disappointed you guys didn't make it to Iceland? Has he tried again? Will he try again in the future?
He is disappointed, or he was disappointed. Yes, very disappointed. He even tried to, when we were in Jan Mayen, to find out which of us would be interested in getting back on the boat and going from there to Iceland. That wound up not happening.
It's like, that's a big no from me, dog. No, thank you.
But yeah, Theon is he's a very alpha kind of guy. He was very in this for that sense of accomplishment, the records, and to. With what happened, I feel like, to him, it felt like a big failure in ways. We still broke 11 of, I think, the 12 records he wanted to set out to get. But, I think just not reaching Iceland, where he had this whole welcome party organized and everything, was definitely sad for him. I think he will try to do it again. I think there have been, we still have a WhatsApp group, me and some of the guys I rode with, and there have been some rumors that he's looking for another team to try to do it again. Actually, funny enough, Jimmy Graham, former NFL player, him and some others are going to attempt this next August, same exact thing. Yeah. So
I think he needs to only bring Olympic athletes and professional athletes and not some punk kid from New York.
I would agree. I would totally agree.
Yeah, way to go, Tyler.
I ruined everything.
He's like, if I didn't bring this pussy Tyler, we would have been fine.
Guys, guy does one course on the Hudson River and thinks he's like,
That is crazy that you went from not rowing at all to being like, you know what? I could do this. I haven't rowed that much in my life, but you know what? I'm going to go to the Arctic Ocean.
yeah. And I'm not actually blaming you, Tyler. I'm sure you held your own.
Yeah, he blamed himself.
I think I held my own. I think, but that speaks to like, if you like, I think people overestimate how hard it is to like jump into something and just do it if you have the ambition and willpower. Like, obviously not everyone's the same, but like for me, I almost get a really deep sense of satisfaction out of like jumping into something where, I had no prior experience in it or, serious preparation or planning and seeing, if I can accomplish it.
Yeah.
Kind of voluntarily putting myself into do or die situations. I am definitely a psycho.
Yeah, because you hadn't trained a bunch for climbing Everest.
No, honestly, not at all. I had been not that there's much that you can do. I climbed Mount Vinson in Antarctica maybe like 3-4 months before that. There's obviously like the technical side of things. You want to be prepared for the technical part of any kind of mountaineering excursion. But aside from that, Everest is like a tricky one to train for physically because actually, Donnie, after you left, I'm sitting at base camp for 3 weeks, kind of sedentary, and whatever I did physically before that is kind of, aside from the acclimatization, which you have covered there, like kind of lose anything you had gained training wise.
I love how Tyler just casually mentions he had climbed Mount Vincent, which is the tallest mountain on Antarctica.
Yeah, the climate. What's the difference there climate-wise? Because everybody knows Everest is cold as well. Was it substantially colder in Antarctica?
For the most part, yeah. We actually lucked out with some abnormally warm weather when we were there, but like just frigid. Especially at night. Antarctica is a desert, and then on top of that, it's the coldest place on Earth on average, and it was cold, super super cold. Like all the pictures I have icicles in my stubble. Like your breath is freezing. It was cold. Everest, like when we got to Camp 4 at South Pole, and like we went up for the summit, I would say like that was acutely colder. Like take your glove off and you could lose a finger within a minute type of cold. But overall, Antarctica was frigid.
And the hike up that mountain, can that be done in one day as opposed to Everest, which is like a month and a half or 2 months?
Yeah, Everest takes a while. Look, if you're a super athlete and you want to just go up and try to summit Vincent as fast as possible, you could probably do it in a day. I think people have. You basically we took a ski-equipped Twin Otter plane over to Vincent Base Camp, and from there you could, if you really want to do it fast, you could probably do it in a day. But for us, started at Base Camp, we went to Low Camp, that's 1 day, High Camp 1 day, Summit day 3, and then Summit back to Low Camp it was 5 days in total.
And you were with Alex Honnold on that trip, right?
I was by chance. We've become good friends now.
The guy who's had the documentary, right?
Free Solo.
Yeah. I've interviewed him before.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
He's a good dude.
Alex is the best dude. He is such a good guy. He's such we all know him as the climber. I started calling him Alex the philosopher. We spent like 3 weeks together in Antarctica, and I got to know him super well. And beyond what he does physically, he's just such a deep guy, deep thinker, super smart, very, very wise. He was giving me a lot of life advice. It was great. But by chance, Alex has always been, a hero of mine. I think he's amazing. And I get on this shuttle bus when we get down to southern Chile, and I'm sitting next to Alex Honnold. I'm like, holy shit, this is Alex Honnold. And he's just like, oh, hey, dude. I'm like, hey, man. And we by chance we were within the same group of like maybe less than 15 people climbing Vincent at that time, spent that whole time together, got stuck at Union Glacier camp due to storms for a bit, and yeah, I got to know him super well. He is the man. He powered up that mountain way faster than we did. Suffered some altitude sickness, but then he gets back to Vincent Base Camp, and because of the storms, he can't go back to Union Glacier, which is like the main camp in Antarctica. So he's like, "Oh, I'll just set a new climbing route up to High Camp." And him and his buddy Topo, this Ecuadorian guy, equally as badass, they go and just casually set a new climbing route. And it's like, Jesus.
Wow.
I think he also set the record for the fastest time to cross it by land.
Cross what?
Yeah.
Across Antarctica. Like, I think he went on foot across it, like with sleds and feet, like by himself.
Alex Honnold, or is that the other guy that we met?
Oh, Colin O'Brady.
Colin
Yeah,
O'Brady.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Although Alex has traversed quite a bit of Antarctica on foot with the sled. I think him and Jimmy Chin did some documentary. But yeah.
Crazy.
I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, but you currently work for X, used to work for SpaceX. Were you saying that Elon Musk has kind of built his own base on Antarctica?
Yeah, I could talk about this. So Elon reached out to ALE, Antarctic Logistics and Expeditions, the one of only 2 outfitters in the world that brings people down to Antarctica for recreational purposes, and reached out to them and said, "Hey, I want to build a camp down there." So you have the like Union Glacier Camp, which I think can house dozens, if not over 100 people. That's like the main camp right next to this blue ice runway where this giant Ilyushin Russian aircraft comes in and drops people off every 2 weeks, I think it is. And then you have these small base camps, depending on what you want to do. If you want to climb Vinson, there's a base camp there. If you want to go see the penguins, there's a camp over there, etc. And that's kind of how this whole thing works. There's camps around the continents.
Put me in the penguin group.
And you'll take aircrafts to these, and Elon's like, "Hey, can I fund a new camp? I would love to build one special camp, with this criteria, this set of criteria." And Mike McDowell, one of the owners of ALE, is like, "Yeah, sure." So Elon fronts, I think it's a few $1 million to get this camp built. It's called Three Glaciers Retreat. It's tucked up kind of maybe like a 45, 60-minute snowmobile ride from Union Glacier up in the mountains where 3 glaciers converge. Hence why it's called Three Glaciers Retreat. But built that camp. It's a luxury camp. It's absolutely incredible. And he was down in southern Chile waiting for the right weather window to fly down to come to it after it was completed. And I think he was with Amber Heard at the time. And they didn't want to, I think the storms were causing too many delays. And I think they flew up to like Brazil or something and just, went on a normal holiday instead. And he'd never been down. So that camp exists. My buddy Devin and I were lucky enough to go up there for a few nights. It's absolutely incredible. It's like in the middle of nowhere in Antarctica, and you have, a Michelin star chef cooking you meals. You have like maybe 8 or 12 of these little tents, which are kind of the rooms with heaters and like super nice beds and a ton of activities. You can go. We went skiing up this kind of nearby mountain. You can take snowmobiles out. It's mostly just to enjoy and take in the sights, but
Full bar.
Oh, with the nicest alcohol. And then you look at the guest book. We found out. So it's like, I guess in a sense, the most exclusive exclusive resort on Earth in a sense, because we were within the first 50 people who had ever been there. And you look at the guest book, and it's like Sergey Brin, Google co-founder, Ashton Kutcher, and then again, like how does this dweeb from New York get to go and hang out in a place like this?
Was P. Diddy on the list or no?
No.
P. Diddy's not on the list.
No.
Good.
Thankfully not.
Good.
Well, if you can do it, I'm not going to give up hope that maybe one day I'll make it to Three Glacier Camp.
Yeah, drop a pin in Three Glacier Camp.
For sure. Well, especially, hopefully Barstool works more with X in the future, and then like Elon's like, why don't you and Portnoy come down?
Yeah.
You never know.
I don't think they would say yes. He doesn't really even like going to Europe, let alone the middle of Antarctica.
Yeah.
Fascinating stories. Tyler, do you have some more questions?
No, man. Thank you so much. Do you have anything on deck that you're planning on doing? Any trips now?
Nothing of like nothing like those type of trips or endeavors. Like Donnie mentioned, I'm working at X now. It's been pretty intense, demanding. So putting all of my focus there. And aside from like an upcoming trip to Saudi Arabia for work and some other trips sprinkled in throughout the rest of the year, nothing planned. I think like 22. It's weird. This is the first time in my life where I don't have this burning desire to get out and do some weird, crazy, psycho thing. But we'll see what 2025 holds.
And see, I also love people like you because you're like, I have Saudi Arabia, but other than that, not a whole lot. When most people will be like, I'm going to fucking Saudi Arabia, dude. Like and you're like, whatever.
I did want to ask you about that because I'm going to be in Turkey getting my coworkers' hair transplants. And then I saw they have extremely cheap flights from Turkey to Saudi Arabia. Can I just show up and, and visit as you can. You can get a tourist visa on arrival. I think it's like $100, maybe less. But yeah, you can show up. Riyadh is incredible. We were texting about this the other day. I highly recommend it. Saudi is an incredible country. Everything you know about Saudi is, from the Western media, and it's not at all like what you would expect. It's super cool. If you're there for a few days, Riyadh is an amazing city. You can also take a trip up to Alula, which is this incredible desert where they have incredible ruins as well as like art sprinkled throughout the desert. They have some pretty cool buildings up there. But yeah, I mean, Saudi is definitely worth a visit. I need to reach out to their tourism board because they've been flying Rick Ross, DJ Khaled, Logan Paul out there. Mm-hmm. And they definitely are sort of sponsored by whatever tourism board flies them out there. But it looks like they're having a good time.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And my last question, in Mongolia, I was reading books about the Mongols, and I know they at least used to drink this sort of fermented horse milk as their traditional beverage, alcoholic beverage. Did you ever have a chance to try that?
Oh, yeah. Many, many times. Too many times. At first, it's disgusting. I think it's an acquired taste, but towards the end of the trip, I couldn't get enough. So if you ever make it to Mongolia, you have to try it. It's the whole cuisine. Actually, Donnie, you would love it. The whole cuisine across Mongolia is pretty unique. The diet, it's a lot of like goat and camel meat, but also this dried curd from either goat or camel milk, like these little blocks with salt and a little bit of sugar. And I don't know, you would think more people would have heart attacks there, but it seems like they're pretty healthy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I've survived for a week on just cheese, meat, and booze, so I think I'd be good.
Got to get out there.
All right, Tyler. Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
We'll get right back to the pod, but first wanted to tell you about Nutrafol, which is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. Now, obviously, it's a little too late for chaps to get on board.
I disagree, my friend. Yeah. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I used to shave my head all the way to the end or to the skin, and now I don't have to. I'm getting a little bit of growth there.
Okay.
A little bit. See that? I used to not have anything there, and now I'm getting just a touch.
All right. Well, I've been using Nutrafol for a while. A lot of people say I have top 5 hair in the office, and I would like to keep it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've noticed a little bit of hair thinning up here at the hairline. So I started taking it, and my hair has been pretty luscious. A lot of volume up here. And also, with Nutrafol, you can take these pills without compromising sexual performance.
Oh, that's good.
Which is very important to me. I mean, I got a baby on the way, and I made that baby while taking Nutrafol.
There you go. Yeah. And I'm also a certified sex haver.
Oh, let's go. Yep. 2 kids.
That's right.
And I'm leading a hair transplant field trip to Turkey pretty soon. So if you don't want to have to go on one of those in the future and get a bunch of like needles stuck into your head and be all bandaged up, Nutrafol could help.
Mm-hmm. And with the cold weather coming in, this Chicago weather gets a little bit dry, and that could dry you out and make you need a little bit of something.
Yeah. No, cold weather can be very unforgiving, but your hair doesn't have to suffer. So for a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off their first month subscription and free shipping when they go to Nutrafol.com and enter promo code PIN. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code PIN. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code PIN. Let's get back into the pod.
Unbelievable stories from that guy. I can't, like, going across the Arctic. Being cold is one thing. Like, I can handle being cold. Cold and wet is a totally different animal.
Yeah, cold and wet, and then just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Just being in one position for so long.
Yeah.
Gets so uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he could never really fully lay out. It's not like they had a cot. You kind of just had to go into the back cabin of the boat and curl up into a ball and try to sleep.
Have you ever heard of the standing babas?
No.
Standing babas are in India, and they take a religious, I guess, what is it called? Like a oath to never sit down.
Okay, I know the guy in India who like has had his hand raised
and it's
for
like
years.
withered. Yeah.
Yeah. And the hand's just like, it's like a rotten fruit about to fall off the vine.
When he was talking about that, he's like the rowing babas. Is what that guy was.
Yeah. Sounds a lot like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to dive into Norway because that's where he left from. And that's actually where he ended up landing too, because they didn't make it to Iceland. Norway's a fascinating country. It's funny how it went from, like, if you go back to the age of the Vikings, it was known as one of the most like brutal and fearsome countries in the world, or fearsome peoples in the world. And nowadays it's just seen as one of the most like, it gets ranked high on a lot of things like livability, healthcare, education, and they're very proud of that.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah. They'll let you know, they're like, we don't have any crime. Like,
that's the one that has their prisons. Remember, they had that mass shooter, and he ended up lives in an apartment essentially.
Yeah. So if you are going to commit a crime, do it in Norway.
Fantastic advice. Yeah. Way better than Syria. Prisons. I mean, it's probably the best spot of any of the place we dropped a pin in so far to go to prison.
Yeah, so far it's leading the rankings for sure. I mean, Chad might be in last, but Chad and Syria both not great.
Oh, yeah, Chad would be bad.
And then we did talk about the Clemson prison. Not too bad. You get a free breakfast sandwich.
And it's from McDonald's.
I think they still do that to this day. If you end up in the drunk tank, you're at least going to get a free breakfast sandwich.
It might be cheaper for the jail, too, because those contracted companies usually charge a bunch. Mm-hmm. So I bet they could get an Egg McMuffin for $2.
Yeah. So where should we start with Norway?
Vikings? You want to talk some Vikings?
Yeah, I guess that would make sense historically. So yeah, the Vikings were in 3 countries: Norway, Denmark, and Sweden. Mm-hmm. Finland is not a Scandinavian country. It's Nordic, but it's not Scandinavian. And the history is a little confusing. I mean, for a while, it was just a lot of different bands of Vikings, and they would go on raids. They would raid England, Ireland, France, the coast of Germany, the coast of the Baltic states like Lithuania, Estonia. The Vikings in Sweden would actually invade what is now Russia.
Yep.
We're going to talk about that down the line. When I learned that was fascinating, that Vikings pretty much founded Russia. But we're focusing on Norway today. Norwegians did found Dublin, Ireland, though.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, on one of the raids. So these bands, eventually, this dude, Harold Fairhair, I believe was his name, he was able to unite all the different bands in what is now Norway. And he formed the first Viking kingdom there. And yeah, their raids obviously became a lot stronger. And at one point, they had a permanent settlement where Dublin, Ireland is now. They founded it. And then the Gaelic kings eventually took it back over.
Yeah, and when Harold took over, that was some bloody battles.
Yeah, because those Vikings, they only respect one thing, and that is power.
Yeah.
They're not going to willingly be like, okay, you can be the king of kings. Mm-hmm. You got to earn that.
Yeah.
And Harold did. I think Harold's son was named Eric Bloodaxe.
Such great names.
Yeah, they all had incredible names.
What do you think happens? You show up, old school Norway, and you got names like Blood Axe, and then you're like, I'm the Wonton Don.
I don't think they would know what a wonton is.
But if you introduced them to Wonton, you might be the hero of the island.
I'm sure they would love them.
Oh, absolutely they would.
Apparently, when macaroni was first introduced into Norway, some people there thought it was a vegetable. That's an actual quote I found online.
Like macaroni and cheese?
Yeah, like they thought it was similar to a potato. So they would always serve macaroni with potatoes. And yeah, they thought they were kind of like one and the same, both different types of vegetables.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't really know how you come to that conclusion, but
Yeah.
they didn't really have pasta at all. So that their first time seeing it, they were like, "What is this?
Man.
How do you make this?"
What would you want to re-experience for the first time flavor-wise?
Crab rangoon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your first one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Harold Bluetooth, he was not Norwegian. He was Danish. That's how the modern day term Bluetooth came about. Like Bluetooth was named after this Danish Viking named Harold Bluetooth.
How? What's the connection?
What's the connection?
What's
I have no fucking idea,
It
dude.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, why? Why is Bluetooth named after a Viking? Bluetooth is named after King Harald Bluetooth Gormson because the king united Denmark and Norway, similar to how the technology was intended to unite devices.
Oh, give me a
That is
fucking
a
break.
That is a stretch.
Yeah, whoever invented it was just a big Viking guy. He was
Yeah.
probably going through some Viking book series. I'm going to ask that as a trivia question around the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. But with macaroni on the mind already, they're huge on their cheese slicer. Did you know that's where the cheese slicer was invented?
No, are you talking about those industrial deli slicers that can just
Yeah.
yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
1925.
Cool. So that
Cool.
is that the same?
It's cool. You're right.
But so that machine, you use it to slice cheese, but you also use it to slice deli meat. So did they?
I don't think it's exactly the same
Okay.
kind. But
Maybe they
I would
had like
imagine
their
similar.
mechanical, not the one.
With the wire?
Yeah.
Because that's the one I immediately think of. How would it take somebody that long to think of a wire?
Don't ask me.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, over the years, as we just learned, Norway was at sometimes united with Denmark, at some points united with Denmark and Sweden, and then at one point they were united with Sweden. But in between those times, it was its own country. And they accomplished some pretty impressive things. It was Norwegians who first made it to Iceland, settled Iceland. Mm-hmm. It was Norwegians who then went from Iceland to Greenland, had a little settlement there, not a great place to live. And it was the Norwegians that eventually went from Greenland to Newfoundland, I
Yeah.
believe. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is that it?
Yeah, it's Newfoundland.
Yeah. So that is wild. I think it's crazy. When we were young, there were rumors about that.
I think Nova Scotia, too.
Yeah, they may have gotten as far south as there. I mean, some people say they may have gotten as far south as Massachusetts. I don't think we have proof yet. But when we were young, that was not a known fact. I think it was kind of like recently, the last 20 years or 10 years, where they actually found definitive proof that the Vikings were there.
Yeah, and it's because everybody is always told that the first Europeans to come here was Christopher Columbus. Mm-hmm. And then that turned out to not be true. There are certain things that you were taught and memorized as a child that when you find out that they're not historically accurate, it's really upsetting. Like when they took away Pluto.
When they took away Pluto, that was upsetting. I wasn't upset when I learned that Christopher Columbus was not the first person.
No, I wasn't upset about that, but then you have to rewire everything that you knew.
Yeah.
Like if you're wrong about who discovered America, what else aren't you right about? That's how you end up a conspiracy theorist, because of Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, there's some people think that the African kingdom of Mali made it to the New World as well, because they have reports that at one point the king took 500 ships and just sailed west and was
interested to see what he found.
Yeah, and he was loaded because they controlled the gold trade at the time, so he had a lot of money, and he was like, we're gonna make a big fleet and we're just gonna sail west and see what we find. And they never came back. And then in Central America, they have these giant heads And a lot of people are like, those heads look very African, but that's more of a conspiracy theory.
But it makes sense. Like, if you have that much wealth, why wouldn't you? You know?
Yeah, because if you look at the ships they were using, they could have technically made it.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got like 500, at least, 5 of those are going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, and the Viking ships too, they weren't huge.
No, they weren't huge. Like a lot of them were just didn't even have a cover. I think sometimes they would have hides that could go over the hull. And as we learned on the podcast, they did have sails too, but they would row and sail.
Yeah.
I'm sure like the rowing it would help them kind of maneuver the ship,
and it wasn't multiple mast type sailboats either.
It was, just like one giant square sail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's wild that they even like were able to have a settlement on Greenland for so long and survive there. It's probably like, especially at that point, it's starting to warm up a little bit, but one of the most inhospitable places. And I think they named it Greenland to convince people from Iceland to move there because they need more people to have a settlement.
I've heard that, but I don't know how accurate that is.
Should we do a little Snopes check?
Yeah, let's do some Snopes check.
Eric the Red named it Greenland to convince Vikings to settle there. And then they named...
And that was in 982.
Damn, yeah. And then they made it to North America in 10-something. And the craziest thing is if you...
Good branding. I mean, that's good branding for him.
So they have these things like the sagas that are just passed down from generation to generation. So when people were reading the sagas, and it's like, I think they may have made it to North America, but it's a saga. Like, can we count this as definitive history? And it turns out, those sagas have, like, obviously some things are exaggerated, but the main story that you read in the Viking sagas did actually happen.
Yeah. Have you ever heard about how they navigated, like with a stone or a piece of glass kind of stone?
No, I would love to hear about it.
So that's one of the ways that they figured out how to be accurate. They used the sun even when there was cloud cover, because there's this rock or stone or piece of glass, I forget exactly what it is, but you hold it up in the sky, and even if it's cloudy, it picks up the light from the sun through the thick clouds. Even if it's raining or anything, you could still put it up and know, not if it's raining, but you could still put it up and have directionally which way you would go.
Yeah, they had all sorts of tricks. Something, I don't think the Vikings used it, but something called an astrolabe. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Maybe that's a topic for another podcast, but it looks crazy. It was an astronomical instrument dating to ancient times. It served as a star chart and physical model of visible heaven. So I think that was even used by the ancient Greeks too. I
misspelled it and got this real cool looking chicken. That's an astrolorp, which is different.
Now, one thing that is fascinating to me is that the Vikings have accounts of running into Native Americans when they landed in Newfoundland, and they actually had a couple skirmishes. They were like, this is just going to keep on happening, and our supply lines are so damn long,
right,
all the way back to Greenland and Iceland, that like it's not going to make sense to have a settlement here full time. But they were very impressed with the land because they're used to living in Iceland and Greenland. They got to Newfoundland. They named it Vinland, which means vine land, because apparently they must have arrived during the summer. They were like, it's super green. There's all sorts of these vines and berries that we can use to make wine. And so people were like, this place is paradise, but we're getting attacked by the Native Americans, which they called Skraelings. Very cool term.
I do like that.
Sounds like something out of Star Trek.
They used to we used to talk about it in the Marines, that they were the first real group to have like a deployment schedule. Like we would do like 6 months on, 6 months off. They did that, and their fighting season was in the summertime.
Yep.
When it was wintertime, they would go back and make sure that everybody was okay at the camp, and then as soon as spring broke out, that's when they would start going raiding.
Yeah.
So they would try to make it like the trip for them to get to North America or further exploring usually took them about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would pillage, they would do whatever they need to do for another 2 months, and then they would head back.
Yeah, because at first they didn't have a lot of farms. They would just rely on raiding over the summer months.
Yep, and then whenever they did go into places like England or France, they would overtake the area and then essentially make some of those farmers be like indentured servants.
I think it was Norwegians. People aren't sure if they were from Denmark or Norway that created Normandy, because the Vikings would always raid France, and the king was like starting to get really annoyed. And he was like, I can't stop them. They're too powerful. So he's like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you Vikings this area of France, but then it's your job to protect France from other raiding bands of Vikings. And so that's why it's called Normandy, because it's land of the Normans, and Normans came from Norsemen, which means Northmen. I was like fascinated by that, especially because those Vikings that settled in France were then the ones to conquer England.
Yep.
And those Normans then went to Sicily. Vikings were kind of the like hired hand, the hired mercenaries of their day, because they were so good at fighting. So at one point they were hired to help fight in Sicily. And then they were like, dude, this place is nice.
Yeah, I used to live in Sicily.
And we are going to do an episode on Sicily. Might have Dante the Don on for that. Fascinating place.
I wonder if the Vikings got to try any blood oranges.
They do. They grow a mean orange in Sicily.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Vikings eventually were like, you know what? Let's just take this island over.
What, dude? Absolutely. If you're taking shitty ass, constantly raining England,
Yeah.
you're taking Sicily.
You got to take Sicily.
Yeah, I mean, all the other places stink. You want to go somewhere for the summertime? Bring Helda down there, bang her back out.
Although I will say, I was in Sicily in April. It was perfect weather. If you go in late July or August, it is fucking hot.
Yeah, it's hot because the winds come off of Africa. It's an African wind.
Yeah, yep. Dante taught me that. But it's like, yeah, a lot of people are just trying to stay indoors. Oh, man. In April, it was perfect. I jumped in the water. Well, we'll save these stories for the Sicily episode.
Yeah.
The only other historical thing that I want to bring up is that, have you ever heard of the Norwegian Crusade?
No.
So it was the first crusade that was led by the actual king. So I guess the first crusade, it was just minor nobles like counts or dukes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The actual king of Norway, I think at this point, Norway had been Christian for 100 years. And the first crusade had already happened. And he was like, damn, like that looks fun. I want to do that. So he took a huge army. They sailed from Norway to England. Then they went England to Spain, fought some wars there because at that point Spain and Portugal were trying to reconquer the rest of the Iberian Peninsula from the Muslims. Fought some wars there, then went to the Straits of Gibraltar into the Mediterranean, stopped in Ibiza.
They're doing places that we should drop a pin in.
Yeah, dude, we should
that's a good little I just graduated college trip.
Dude, it sounds sick.
The Strait of Gibraltar, fucking Ibiza,
Yep.
Sicily, sign me up.
I think they won every single battle of their entire trek. So they were just fucking cruising to beautiful places, kicking some ass,
Yeah.
getting a lot of booty,
Oh, yeah.
probably like literally and figuratively.
And different types of booty from all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They must have been having
like a
so much
Pornhub
fun.
map. Yeah.
And you're being led by your king.
See, they had macaroni. If they went to Sicily, they have it.
I think this was way back in the day. I don't even think Sicily had macaroni.
Damn.
I don't know. But yeah, so they were just running train. They were running train all over the Mediterranean.
Fuck yeah.
Because all of those islands like Ibiza, Majorca, those were all Muslim slave trading islands. And we can probably thank Harold for the fact that Ibiza is now like the #1 party destination in the world.
Yeah, shout out Casey Smith.
Oh, yes. And then from there, maybe made a pit stop in like some of the Greek islands, then made it to Jerusalem.
Dude, that's a fantastic trip.
And it's not even over yet.
Okay.
So in Jerusalem, everyone was just like, holy shit, it's the King of Norway. This is crazy. They gave him a bunch of gifts. He got a splinter from the cross of Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think all those relics back in the day were 100% fake.
Absolutely, they're fake.
Absolutely fake. But they showered him with a bunch of relics. And he also helped the Crusaders that were already in Jerusalem fight some more battles. Thanks to him, they conquered a few more cities in that area. And then he was like, all right, it's time to go home. So then they sailed to Constantinople. He got to party with the Byzantine king. Like made him the number one celebrity in Europe. They like wrote all these songs about him and stuff. So he partied with the heir to the Roman Empire in Constantinople for a while. And then at that point, he was like, okay, I think I've spent too much time on a boat. He gave the king, the emperor, the Byzantine emperor, all of his ships, and then just went back to Norway on horseback.
That's a long way.
I know. I think it was maybe like a 4-year round trip or like a 3-year round trip.
And these dudes all had wives and kids.
Yeah.
Like the way that people back in the day used to just be totally away from their family for like a year and a half is nuts.
Whalers are like, those guys blow my mind. The fact that they would be on a boat, like you're pretty much on a boat when you're whaling for a year and a half. And then when you get back, they would only chill in Nantucket for 2 months and then hop back on a boat.
The money can't be worth it. Maybe you do it if you hate your wife and you're very opposed to having a divorce.
Like, I'm sure the money was pretty decent, but if I could only really enjoy that 2 months, every 2 years could actually enjoy the fruits of my labor, it wouldn't really be worth it to me.
Yeah, there was guys I know like they would get out and they would join groups like Blackwater and they would go fight for 8-9 months. Or I think you could only do it 3 months at a time, and then you had to take a 72-hour break.
Yeah.
And because you had to leave the country, but you couldn't go back to the United States when you were doing this.
Okay.
So you end up going on like cruises and shit like that.
Yeah.
But how is that? We're fighting wars forever for 3 days off?
Yeah. I think some people just get hooked to a certain lifestyle. Like those people probably got so used to life on the boat that then they get back and they got their wife and kids and they're like, oh, I can't deal with this.
Yeah. That really, like when you come back from being away, I was for 9 months. And when you come back, your kids are different. Like you have to you're not dealing with getting them ready for school or any of that shit. So imagine being a whaler and dealing with nothing but dudes.
Yep.
No outside entertainment. You didn't have Netflix. You didn't have any of that bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just hopping out with your family and jumping right back in and going to T-ball.
Yeah. There's a scene like that in American Sniper where I think he had just gotten back from tour.
Yeah.
And he's just like sitting alone at a bar because like he's too afraid to kind of go back to his life.
Mm-hmm.
What's the longest time you've been on a boat ever?
Not long.
Not long? Like you've never had to do an overnight on a boat or something?
Yeah, I've done an overnight, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can't think if I've ever done a long boat trip. You can like hitch a ride on those freight boats. Like I know some people who do that. Like if you want a really cheap way to get to Australia, there's like some way to buy a ticket on a freight ship that's leaving from Los Angeles. And there's you have your own small little room, but there's no entertainment or anything. And it takes probably takes.
It's got to take 2 weeks.
Yeah,
at least
2 weeks to a month. I was following a guy on TikTok. He was just doing daily vlogs from a freighter.
I was just gonna say that. Drop a pin in a freighter.
Yeah, apparently my mom's grandfather or something like that used to do that a bit.
Imagine the guys that work on those ships and you're talking to them for like absolute wild cards.
Oh yeah,
has to be right. Like if you're a freighter, you're a weirdo.
Yeah,
you don't. That's not a job that you just get into.
That's a job where you're like 3 months on, 3 months. Like I could do 3 months on, 3 months off, and that was my life. I think that would be really enjoyable. Maybe
I think 2 months is about
2 months on and 2 months off.
Yeah,
I worked as a park ranger. We would do 10 days on and then 4 days off. Those 10 days I was living on an island in Boston Harbor. We should drop a pin in Boston Harbor.
Okay.
Yeah. Boston Harbor Islands. Or maybe we could just do Boston in general, and then I could share all my Boston stories.
Yeah, get Portnoy on here.
Yeah, we'll have Portnoy on for the Nantucket episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think we should briefly mention that during World War II, Norway was captured by the Nazis. And the reason they invaded Norway so quickly is because they needed iron ore for their steel production, which would all come from Sweden, but it would travel overland from Sweden to Norway, and it would be picked up in the port of Narvik or something like that. And so they were like, if the Allies capture that port, we're fucked. We won't be able to get the iron ore. And then the Allies were like talking to Norway. They're like, we know you're neutral, but Germany is going to invade. You should let us into the country so we can protect you from the Nazis, or else they're just going to run train on your entire country. Like, I don't think you guys can put up that much of a fight. And they're like, no, we're neutral. We're neutral. Germany's going to respect our neutrality. And lo and behold, they launched a surprise attack. And for a while, it was British troops and the Norwegian resistance fighting the Germans, but the Germans eventually won.
It just goes to show you, even when we talked about the Vikings going to North America, logistics win wars. Always.
They used to crack a joke, the local Norwegians, because they weren't happy with Nazi rule. What did they say? It's not a great joke, so I don't want to hype this up too much. They would say, do you know the difference between the Nazis and a bucket of manure?
No.
The bucket.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that. You want to go into some cultural things that they have now?
Yeah, for sure.
Have you ever had lutefisk?
Unless that's the fermented fish, I don't think so.
No, this is lutefisk is a traditional dish made from dried fish soaked in lye to give it a like a jelly type texture.
Soaked in lye?
Yeah.
All right. Lye's that white stuff?
I don't know what lye does.
So the only time I've had lye, it was used in a betel nut in Taiwan. Betel nuts are these kind of nuts rolled in a leaf that they chew constantly, and it sort of gives you a nicotine caffeine buzz.
And it makes your teeth all red,
yes.
right?
But they would put lye on the leaf because the lye would burn like the outer layer of the skin in your mouth. So the psychoactive ingredient would enter the bloodstream faster.
That's super popular in India too.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. Another one, they have their tax transparency would make people. So you know how if like there's an NBA player and you're like, oh, I wonder how much this guy makes. You can go to that contract website, Sports Track, and it'll tell you how much they make. You could do that with every person in Norway. Like you can go on your neighbor and know exactly how much they make.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So every single person's salary is public knowledge. Because the weather is so good, parents there.
The weather is so good.
Like throughout the summer, like in the summers, it's nice. Like you're going to have like a like 65 to 75 degree temperature.
Yep.
They will put their babies in strollers and they leave them on the porch. So that like if they, I don't know why they do it, but it's a cultural thing there.
I got one for you.
All right.
Norway introduced salmon sushi to Japan in the 1980s.
1980s?
1980s. So I'm sure the Japanese were eating a bunch of
Like
tuna sushi.
Yeah.
But salmon sushi wasn't a thing in Japan until the 1980s.
I like salmon sushi more than tuna.
I like them both.
I like them both too.
I love them both.
We should order some for lunch.
I don't know if this is just fear mongering, but I remember reading something that like in 40 years we're going to run out of tuna. And like that's like me thinking like, wait, so my son won't be able to have tuna sushi? It was kind of sad, but it may have been fear mongering. Maybe he'll just have like
Maybe not wild caught.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Well, the thing is,
but tuna are huge.
Tuna is huge. Like there are a lot of salmon farms, but they don't have tuna farms.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Somebody's gonna do it.
Yeah. Well, I think someone's just gonna start making like lab grown tuna.
Probably, yeah.
Probably in 20 years, it's gonna be pretty common because that stuff. I think it is meat, but they just found a way to grow meat without like having to first have an animal.
Like when those rats will grow an ear.
Yeah, I think so. I guess.
Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, where they can like they do gene splicing and then a rat will grow an ear on the back of its like on its back.
Yeah.
And are they doing that so they can do like ear transplants?
Yes.
And the ear was just grown on the back of a rat. That is crazy shit.
And the rats look so funny with the big old ear on the back.
I have seen one of those photos. We'll have to throw it in the pod. Norway generates 98 to 99% of its electricity from hydroelectric power. That's pretty impressive.
That is.
Yeah.
Big fjord spot.
Yeah. I love a good fjord.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a fjord?
I've never been to a fjord.
I went to
Wait, does the Pacific Northwest have fjords?
I'm sure it's got to have some fjords. I mean, Maine has fjords, I think.
Well, maybe I've been to a fjord
Okay.
because I went on a couple little islands and got lobster rolls when I was in Maine.
Oh, nice.
I
Yeah.
love a good lobster roll.
Oh my God. If you ever go to Maine again, there's a place called Red's Eats. It's the best lobster roll I've ever had.
Is that in Portland?
No, it's north of Portland. But it's just, it looks like they put 2 full lobsters in it and just covered in butter. Incredible. I went to a fjord on the Amalfi Coast. That was just stunningly beautiful.
Also, it's a polar bear spot. There's polar bears in Norway.
Yeah. I'm not shocked by that.
Yeah, they have. They can swim 400 miles.
Damn. I mean, it makes sense just because they have to. Like, they live a lot of their life on the ice caps, and you never know when that's just going to break apart and you got to swim somewhere else.
The longest one that has been tracked swimming is 2 weeks.
Now, when they're swimming, are they able to catch fish, like, while swimming?
I don't think so. I think that's the reason why they do it, for the purpose of hunger, like going to a new spot.
Okay. Yeah, because bears are really good at storing their energy. Like, that's why they can hibernate. When they hibernate, they don't eat for 4 months.
Yeah, and hibernation is, I actually watched a documentary about this the other day. It's not like what we think. Like when I was growing up, another lie that we were told is that bears would find like a cave, and that's some, but some is just like out in the open, or they have like a mental state where they don't eat. They slow down as much as possible, and they're very lethargic, but they're like awake and cognizant.
They can slow their heartbeat
Yeah.
a crazy amount,
Yeah.
which is wild. It's wild that they can just sort of turn off for 4 months.
It's kind of what those deep divers do.
Oh, yeah?
Like the free divers.
Yeah. Because they can slow down their heart rate a lot, too.
Yeah. And like their breath is so much different after all kinds of training.
Yeah, dude, I did one session of breath work. I think I mentioned this on the pod when I was down in Mexico, and I could normally hold my breath for a minute and a half. He taught me this technique, walked me through the motions. I did a bunch of deep breaths, and then I held my breath for over 3 minutes.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You do 5, right? Is that what he taught you? Like whenever we did it in school, you take one shot, like kind of deep breath, and you try to go deeper and deeper each time.
Yeah, you can't just breathe into your chest. You got to breathe into your
all the way to your diaphragm.
stomach. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a people group that's, I forget what the island is, but it's in the Pacific, where for generations they have experienced like human microevolution, where that entire people group have the ability to swim underneath water. And this is going to blow your mind. There's been some that say that their skin has evolved where they can take in oxygen in the water through their skin.
I mean, big if true.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
Yeah. I forget where it is. I'll try to look it up and mention it on another pod.
Reminds me of Waterworld. Kevin Costner, where he like evolved to have gills behind his ears.
Yeah. Or what was that movie that won like an Academy Award where they had like the fish guy that fucked that woman that was in a bathtub?
The Shape of Water?
Yeah, The Shape of Water.
I don't even think I saw the movie, but I just know it's about a woman who fucks a fish guy.
The fact that they never showed his dick is...
They didn't?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I needed to see it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're a huge cock guy.
Big cock guy, yeah.
I think they were just like, it's just going to ruin the movie. There's like no way to make people happy with how this guy's cock looks like.
Yeah.
It's just going to make it a lot more disturbing. Like they want people to focus on the love, not the penetration.
True. But there was, I mean, I feel like they could have had just an emotional connection, but no.
Yeah, you're right. They didn't even have to have sex.
He didn't have to shoot his salmon roe into her for it to be a good
God.
movie.
Imagine she's just leaking fish eggs for the next like week.
Her pussy looks like a California roll on
dude.
the outside. Yes. Can you get me a towel or something to clean up?
Oh my God. Actually, that reminds me. Did you ever watch Miss Frizzle and the Magic School Bus?
Oh, yeah.
When you were a kid?
Yeah.
I saw a clip on Instagram. There was an episode of that show where Miss Frizzle takes them to get jizzed on by salmon. And it's just like, they're like, the school bus turns into a sub, like a mini submarine, and then they're like right below the salmon. And then all of a sudden it just goes, and this like white jizz goes all over them. And then they're seeing like the sperm or the eggs, and they're like, she's like, "Do you know what this is?"
It's cum.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, well, eggs need to be fertilized."
That Magic School Bus, I actually thought about that because they did a tour through the intestines at one point, and I had a lot of stuff going on in my intestine region this week. So,
yeah, chaps just had hernia surgery.
yeah, people in the office were saying it was a hemorrhoid, and that was very offensive to me.
I mean, hemorrhoids can get to the point where they need surgery, right?
Yeah.
Jeez. But yeah, I even had to look up what a hernia is, but it's kind of like when your intestine kind of
Comes out a little bit.
yeah, it goes in the wrong place. Do you think that is an after effect of you being shot? Like, do you think it's
No, because
somehow related or no?
I don't think so. I know like a lot of my stomach issues were because when I got shot, I had to take like these pills that are supposed to be for you to not get lead poisoning in case there's like little fragments in your blood.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the worst because that like ripped my stomach liner out, and I was in Fallujah, so it was like 115 degrees in a porta potty like 100 times a day. It was
Damn.
awful.
So even in the hospitals in Fallujah, you had to use a porta potty?
Well, I was only in the hospital for 4 days.
Okay.
So I was in the hospital for 4 days, and then I went back, and they were going to send me home, and I like threw a bitch fit about it because I wanted to finish the tour.
Yeah.
And so then I just started training other dog handlers while I was there. It was actually pretty sweet. I got like helicopter rides all over the country, and I got to go to all different like bases and areas of where people were operating and teaching them how like some new techniques because I had worked with like recon and SEALs so
Nice.
much.
Do you enjoy helicopter rides? I know they really freak some people out.
It depends on the size. Like the big ones are sick because a lot of times they'll fly with the back open. So you could see out and see everything. It's like the best aerial view that you can have,
Yeah.
like unless you're a pilot.
Yep.
It was incredible. But the smaller ones are really, I mean, so bumpy, like not comfortable at all. You can't hear, and almost every military one is like leaking like hydraulic fluid, so you're getting it all over yourself.
Yep.
It was getting my dog's hair all the time.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
There was a French guy who once landed a helicopter on the peak of Mount Everest, which is insane because I thought the air was
Too thin.
too thin, but he did it. He like landed, was probably only there for 5 minutes, and then took off and went down.
Wow. Yeah, I would have thought that would be too high.
Yeah.
Shit.
I got a fun fact about Norway.
All right.
They celebrate Taco Friday
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of Taco Tuesday.
They don't. I wonder what the word is in Norwegian for taco.
So the word for Taco Friday is Taco Fredag.
Oh no, that
So it's just
stinks.
taco.
You got to go back to an alliteration.
Yeah. Taco Fredag. Yeah. It doesn't really roll off the tongue.
Public bathrooms also will charge you 10 to 20 nook to be able to pee. You have to pay to go to the public restroom.
Okay. So that was a thing in China too, where the public restroom would be open, but if you wanted toilet paper, you sometimes would have to pay for the toilet paper. They actually, one spot went to in China, they had a face scan for toilet paper. So it would like scan your face, and then it like from that, it knows your WeChat account, which is linked to your WeChat wallet, and you would just be charged automatically.
Oh, I thought you meant they would scan your face and just kind of know like what kind of shitter you are.
Oh,
Like, are you like a real sloppy guy?
And then it would be like, all right, we're going to give you 20 rolls. Or,
Like Big Ev rolls in and they're like,
it just keeps on shooting out toilet paper.
yeah, I don't know for a fact if Big Ev has big shits. But
No. Yeah. I mean, I've taken some huge dumps recently.
Big Cat said that he filled up 3 toilets the other day.
Like back to back to back?
Yeah, 3 full bowls.
Yeah. I used to clog toilets in China a lot because I think their toilets are made for Chinese-sized poops.
Yeah, they just have like the holes are smaller because the pipes are smaller, so they just have like joke holes that are just for farts.
Yes. Yep.
You can only flush farts down there.
Yeah. I would, and then I learned that I should always poop, flush, and then wipe.
Yeah.
When I would poop, wipe, then the toilet paper and the poop, it couldn't handle it.
Reindeer's a very popular meat.
Reindeer is?
Yeah.
Yep. And then I think this was maybe it was northern Finland, but probably northern Norway too. The native people up there, the shamans would hallucinate by drinking reindeer piss, because the reindeers would eat a certain type of hallucinogen, and somehow
Little berries, right?
yeah, berries or types of mushrooms, but it was the type of mushroom that if you just ate it yourself, you would get very sick. But if a reindeer ate it and then you drank the reindeer piss, then it would have like a very cool hallucinogenic effect.
People, you could do that if somebody ate a lot of asparagus.
You can hallucinate off of asparagus?
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Asparagus is just known for making your piss smell horrible, right?
Yeah, it's got to do something else.
Does asparagus also make your jizz smell horrible? I think I heard pineapple either makes your semen taste better or worse.
Sweeter, in my experience, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, nice. New mothers in Norway, they get 44 weeks or 13 months of leave at 80% of their salary.
It's incredible.
Yeah, that's nice. I think a lot of Europe does that.
Yeah. We have very terrible things for our people here.
The U.S. does in general. Barstool
Is great.
Is pretty good with that.
Yeah.
But
Barstool definitely good.
I don't know how much time I'm going to take, because like I feel like people here take very varying degrees of paternity leave.
Yeah, I recommend taking it because it's the only time that your baby's going to be that small, like
Yeah.
just like constantly being around and everything.
But we will still be dropping the podcast when I'm on paternity leave.
Yep, that's the reason why at the top of the show we had so many banked.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
we
We're just
can
going to keep
make
on
sure that we have them.
banking episodes until February.
Anything else about Norway before we get into getting cultured?
Do you remember that song? What does the fox say? That was a Norwegian artist by the name of Elvis.
Okay. Not from Tupelo, Mississippi. I
No,
assume.
no. Elvis spelled Ylvis.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think Norway invented the modern form of skiing, and ski is Norwegian for piece of wood.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you're going piece of wood?
So yeah, like I'm going to go grab my skis just means I'm going to go grab my 2 pieces of wood.
Okay.
Cool.
Sure. All right, let's hop into some getting cultured.
Danny Conrad. Danny, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
I will say, when we asked you, like, somebody cultured, if you asked me who's cultured, I'd say Danny Conrad.
Really?
Yeah.
Danny knows a lot about Chicago suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've never had a conversation about a foreign country with Danny.
Yeah, it looks like I tricked you, chaps. I don't know that I really am that cultured because I haven't really traveled much outside of the U.S., which is why I'm here today to ask you my questions about life outside of the U.S.
Okay.
So this is a very basic question, but I'm a very basic guy and I need the fundamentals. I'm still even in the process of getting a passport, something that I know is easy, but I've just been procrastinating on for months now. And I wanted to ask, this is just traveling 101 these days, I think. If I were to go to Europe, give myself 10 days there, what are the places I would go to and what is the best order of operations for said places? Like, do you go to Italy first and then go over to somewhere else, the UK, maybe, if that's even on your list or not? Or what's the best way to navigate a trip through Europe while hitting all the main basic spots?
So I've never done a big Euro trip that I know like a lot of people do, especially if they go abroad to Europe, then they'll just buy a train pass and hit all these countries. I can tell you some hot spots that I think you could hit in 10 days.
Okay.
I think you should go to Amsterdam. Beautiful city with all those canals. A lot of weed if you're into that. A lot of magic truffles if you're into that.
So I should preface with this, like over the past year, maybe it's just because I'm getting older, I'm at that age, but I feel like everyone is going to Europe. Everyone is traveling there. And it seems like they all know something I don't. Maybe because I'm naturally like a bad planner, but it seems like kids who I wouldn't expect to have it figured out, they go to Europe and they are hitting all the good spots. They're not missing out on anything. I feel like I get lost in a second down there.
I mean, it might be best just to choose one country, because if you're trying to do 10 days in Italy, like that would be the perfect time to you could hit 3 or 4 different cities in Italy. But it'd be tough to be like, oh, I'm trying to go to Italy and I'm trying to go to France and I'm trying to go to Spain.
Okay. So it'd probably be more normal to spend half the trip in Italy, if anything.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't try to do 3 or 4 spots. I mean, if you're going for that long, I could see doing Italy and then one other country. But I think Donnie's right. Like,
Would
for
2
me,
weeks change it?
really experiencing someplace, I think, is more important than just going there.
Yeah, when I say country, I mean like, the best site in that country, whatever, the best travel destination, hotspot.
And I think like the fact you're saying you're seeing all these people go to Europe and you're like, how did they figure it out? It's not too tough to figure out once you get there. Even in Italy, where their first language is not English, most signs will be translated into English as well. And most Italians, once that you start talking to them, they're like, all right, this guy does not speak Italian. They can speak enough English to help you.
Okay. I always just felt like that's something I needed to have figured out before landing there. The train schedule, what day I can go to this place while also hitting this place since it's close.
But you've gotten around Chicago by using like the trains and shit. You'll be fine.
Sure.
Yeah, the trains are really easy there. That's what I would use to get around Italy. I've lived in Venice. You could just take a 2-hour train to Florence, and then from Florence, it was another 2-hour train to Rome. And you go on the website. It's in English. You check the train schedule. The trains are fairly cheaper than the Amtrak, I'd say. And then the only thing you got to know is that their timetables are military time, European time. So you got to be like
hitting up chaps for translations.
1700.
That is 5.
Got it.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. All right. Let's do a tricky one. 2200.
That is 10.
Oh, you're ready to go.
Okay.
Get him a train ticket, folks.
This was therapeutic. It's coming off as more of a me problem, just not being able to bunker down and schedule and plan things, as opposed to the difficulty of traveling abroad. So I think maybe going off this, I should just focus on Italy, one thing at a time.
Are you Italian? I mean,
I'm 25%.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Fasoli was just in here and he's more.
Oh, he cucked me?
Yeah, big time.
It's also Europe is cheaper than people say. Like a lot of the times when I was traveling, I could find places to stay for $50 a night.
Really? Without having to do any sexual favors or anything?
No sexual favors.
Damn it.
These weren't super nice places. I don't know how much of a travel diva you are, like how nice of a spot you want. I guess it depends. If you're taking a girl, she might have higher standards than you would have if you were just traveling with like one of your boys or alone.
Do you need a bidet or you just want one?
I just want one.
Okay.
I would like to have a bidet experience while I'm in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be a cherry on top. I'm just going to Italy for the bidets. Flying right back.
Bidet reviews.
And then the 2 airlines you would want to know are called EasyJet or Ryanair. Really dirt cheap prices all around Europe.
See, that's good to know. That's really good to know. I didn't even
Now,
think
is
about
that kind of like JetBlue? Or not JetBlue, but like Spirit?
Yeah.
Because it's cheaper?
It's Spirit.
Or are you going to have the same kind of experiences while you're waiting in line?
What, with all like...
With like, every
Whack job.
Spirit airline
You got to get out and move the plane.
Just crazy, yeah.
like a bobsled.
No, I didn't have any horror stories the few times I flew EasyJet. And like the seats aren't that comfortable, but the flights they're all going to be short.
Like an hour, yeah.
Yeah. Just hour flights, bounce around.
I wouldn't mind being a background character of a viral plane video.
Yeah. I feel like the majority of those viral plane videos all come from America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I got to stay here for that. Damn it.
China as well. I guess China's had some bad ones come out.
Yeah, see, China, like I would be a fish out of water in China. I wouldn't know what the hell I'm doing. Be bumping into people who can't speak a lick of Chinese.
Danny Does China would be a hit, though.
Oh, yeah. Ni hao.
That's exactly right.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, that's all you need. Ni hao. I think you'd be fine in China as well. But hey, maybe start with Europe.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, Italy is a very cool country. I don't know if that's like where you have to start. It depends what you're into. Like if you went to France, you could also go to Brussels and Amsterdam, or you could just do all Italy, or you could do the Balkans, my personal favorite. Ooh. Where my friend just rented a car and we just drove around the Balkans, hit like 6 or 7 countries. They drive on our side of the road. So
if you had to choose one, France or Italy?
I would go to Italy.
Okay.
I would go to Italy.
So it's settled.
Yeah,
I
cool.
just have to procrastinate another 3 weeks on getting my passport.
Actually, if you want a starter trip, Lisbon, because that, from what I've seen with flights, those are the cheapest flights to Europe, to Lisbon, and it's beautiful. It feels foreign, but there's also a lot of Americans there, so it's easy to navigate. And you could do Lisbon and Spain. So take your pick. You either go to Italy or you do Lisbon and Spain.
I feel like that one
Amsterdam.
gives you more clout.
Italy?
I feel like Lisbon and Spain gives you more clout than I went to France or Italy, because they're like, ugh, Danny's being basic again.
Yeah, but I am basic. But no, that's fair.
But you want to get away from that. You want, once it hits the stories, you want people to be losing their shit.
Oh, what does he know that we don't?
Yeah, you want the group chats to really be getting going.
Right. I'm going from a basic Chicago guy. I'd be lucky if we would go to Florida. Wisconsin was a usual destination, so anything would be a step up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Talk to Quiggs or Jack McCarthy, because they both recently went to Lisbon.
I don't know if I should be telling people there that I know Jack McCarthy. I don't know what.
Yeah, this is smart.
If they can do it, though, you can do it. I've got faith in you.
I needed that today. Thank you, guys.
I love gassing Danny up.
Yeah.
It's rare occurrence.
Hey, Danny's the only reason I went to Wisconsin Dells, which is the indoor water park capital of the world.
Damn, I wish I would have got to go.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that. I was so jealous. The FOMO was off the charts.
You can still go.
No,
Still only
but it's not. Even if I went with you guys, it'd be your second time. It'd be more special for me than you, and I don't.
Oh well, he grew up going there. So
Yeah, but you already went. I would want to go as a squad.
We went to one water park.
Yeah.
What?
Just
Great
one?
Wolf?
No,
no, we went to
Kalahari, or was it
Wilderness?
Wilderness.
And Kalahari is supposedly the best in the world.
Yeah, I'll be going back for sure. I have
Drop a pin in the Dells, baby.
Yeah.
Dells, just get a nice clinic test after you're done with that hot tub.
Okay. All right, Danny. Thanks, man.
Thank you, guys. See you in Lisbon.